Thank you for that. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and start. So I guess the first thing I put down is if I stay COVID free, which is looking pretty good right now. If I stay COVID free, I'm planning to go to the Heterodox Academy conference, which is kind of mostly just something that I'm interested in. But I think there's the potential to crypto pill some people that are kind of influential in like the social media thought leadership space. Heterodox Academy was started by this guy named Jonathan Haidt that Keith and I have talked about. Are you familiar with him, Crystal? He's an author and psychologist. So he wrote a book called Coddling of the American Mind and a couple of other things, just kind of about it. It has a lot to do with like mental health of teens and the impact of social media and kind of like digital life on that. It has been, kind of influential on my own parenting. And he's written a lot lately about social media and has been on a couple of podcasts where, I put one of them in the Discord. He talks about, I feel like he's got the diagnosis of what's wrong with social media down, but then his solutions are kind of like, yeah, okay. So like we just need more. It's funny because it's like, clearly what we need is more, regulation on these platforms, which makes sense. But like, you literally just got done telling me that you don't think the U.S. Congress is a functional institution.
Right. Yeah.
So like I've listened to a couple of these interviews with him now and read his book, and like every time I'm like, somebody needs to talk to this guy about Web3. So I emailed him. So I got a press pass to this conference in Denver where he's the keynote speaker, and emailed him to see if he wanted to get together and do an interview. And I mentioned that I'm interested in Web3, but also that I'm a journalist, basically that I wanted to interview him about technology and social media. And he basically said the conference is going to be way too hectic, but find me at the bar, introduce yourself, we'll have a drink, and then later in the month we can plan to do a more in-depth conversation via Zoom. So that's where we're at. And I did have the thought, I haven't broached this with him, but I did have the thought that could be a cool thing to do as like a community call, and like could be kind of one of the first type of like perks, if we were to have the founder NFT already launched by then, that could be the sort of thing like this, you can get access to this Zoom call with this best-selling author, and even if we don't have that set up, I think it would be a pretty interesting call to at least have a few of us on with him, just dialoguing back and forth. So that's one thing. And then I also reached out to another journalist who's going to be there named Katie Herzog, who has a podcast that I'm a big fan of, and they're doing a live podcast thing there. And so these are two people that I think have no idea about Web3, but have a pretty big audience. So, if we can get in their ear about Web3, maybe that could be productive.
What's Katie Herzog's podcast?
Called Blocked and Reported. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
So a lot of this, we don't have to get into it. There's a lot of this kind of has to do with a little bit of my political evolution over the last 2 years that feeds into Web3 a little bit, which there's a reason that like I talked to Spencer about Andrew Yang and saying I like Andrew Yang, which is more a reflection of how disturbed I am with the two major parties right now. So yeah, so that's that. And this is all contingent on COVID. The original plan was to take the whole family up to Denver, stay with my mom, and then go camping in Colorado for 3 days after the conference. I would say all that is up in the air and officially negative as of right now. So if it stays that way, I'll probably just go to the conference by myself. Hopefully stay negative and that'll happen. Okay, so that's that item. Just an update. Also, last night I put in an application to do a JournoDAO session at the Online News Association conference in Los Angeles in September. There's a few things that are unclear to me about this, namely like how much this would cost. Because they only, like, you can't really buy a ticket to this, a pass to this as an individual. You have to like buy it through your group or your newsroom, which I think, I think the small newsroom, if I understand right, the small newsroom fee is like $400. But then I don't know, there's something where I think they try to talk all presenters into sponsoring. Anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there. The application process was pretty short and easy. I just kind of threw in a lot of I actually like copied and pasted a lot of what's in our Gitcoin pitch and kind of tailored that for a non-Web3 crowd. And the thing I specifically want to mention to you folks is that the second half of the application is a 30-minute Zoom call with one of their people, and I reserved Friday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. And I did put down Keith as like a second person on the application. But I think if as many of you as possible want to join and can join on that call, I think that'd be good. And I don't really know what to expect from it. So, but I just know it's a half hour, 8:30 Friday, and I can forward that information a little later on if that works for any of you.
This Friday?
This Friday, yeah, the 10th.
Usually I wouldn't be able to make that because I'd be dropping the kids off, but since their last day of school is on Thursday, that should work.
Cool. I'll forward the Calendly information on in a second here. So that's kind of it in terms of just updates. One thing, some names I just wanted to throw out there. Okay, you know this name, this guy Rich from something called Decent Ventures. I think Wong Jun Yun sent that name to you, Keith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been engaging with them a little bit, but it's like this kind of labyrinthine structure where I think at the bottom of it is something called Edgeware, which is a protocol, and then Edgeware like launched something called Kabuka, which I think is a DAO, and maybe also a protocol. And then there's Decent Ventures, and then there's Rich, and they have just started tweeting about like their own like futuristic media infrastructure, which kind of sounds a lot like Brad's B-Branch thing. But I'm just wondering, like, do any of you know anything about like Edgeware or any of those names that I just threw out? Okay.
So I got pretty far with Edgeware after June. I don't know. Actually don't know what he goes by. I
don't either.
I was calling him June, but he and it just seemed like a place for people to like make proposals and get funded and stuff like that from their treasury that they manage. But I wasn't clear on.
This is funny. He just posted in our server.
Oh, okay.
in the funding the DAO channel, he says, I think we should develop JournoDAO as a parachain. We can incubate through Edgeware and Kabuka, create it as a network public. That's the thing that I was just trying to describe. They're like their version of D branch or whatever. So that literally 30 seconds ago just got posted in our server.
Hop on the call, or would that be too derailing? We can do that separate. Maybe a different.
What do you? I mean, he's clearly here right now. Right. I think I can see how JournoDAO is fucking DMing me too. Oh, because I sent him your, I think I tweeted him your blockchain validators piece, Keith.
Oh, right.
And he says, this is in a DM, he says, the piece is great. I think I can see how JournoDAO can be structured within our network publics framework. Well, shit. Do we want to bring him on?
Up to you. That might take the whole rest of the call. I don't know if we want to divert, or we could maybe set up a separate call.
Yeah, I'll just say let's set up a call. Okay. So that's happening in real time. One other thing, like just to let everyone know, like I feel like this is all definitely at the verge of getting away from me in terms of, particularly, if we're about to start up this blockchain investigations thing that I would like to, spend a little time involved in and learning and trying and learning through doing myself. Like I can feel stuff like as this grows, I can feel things on the fringes like balls about to be dropped. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there to kind of let you know where I'm at. It's also because I'm sure it's also because COVID and because travel plans next week. All right, let me just get through my list and then other people can talk. Everyone here knows about the mirror walkthrough and the NFT thing, which, yeah, like speaking of not having quite a handle on anything, I haven't been able to upload that video yet. But I thought it went really well. Sorry you missed it, Keith, but we'll get it up for you to watch. I thought it came out pretty well. The discussion, like at the end, was particularly great, and I thought it was good, even though I did a pretty half-assed job of getting my like screen share set up beforehand and didn't really have much of a script laid out and just rambled through the beginning intro. I thought it came out well. Do you think so as well, Crystal?
Yeah, I did. I thought it went really well. And then I liked the brainstorming at the end. I could have run with that a little bit longer. But I thought we got into some good nuggets. Yeah.
So for sure, and it was kind of good to have Jennifer there, kind of playing the role of the audience in a way, or the interviewer, or both. But she was kind of a good. She was there to like ask some questions, and I think play the role of you're the person that we were trying to teach. So that was cool.
I mean, at the end there, sorry, Sean.
No, go for it, Spencer. Go.
I was going to say at the end there, when we started brainstorming after getting through the actual walkthrough for Mirror, and we started getting into more of the complex technical kind of brainstorming, and then Jennifer kind of like reeled us in, kind of reminding us that this is supposed to be like a general purpose session. I mean, I think that's a good argument, but I also think, I believe Crystal made the counter argument that someone who's getting introduced to this stuff maybe in their interest to like hear these kind of conversations, to like see how like a more technical understanding can develop. I mean, I think that's a good kind of conversation to have if we want to move more in this direction of educating people who aren't used to Web3 stuff. Like, should we be having like really technical conversations in public? Like, would that be too intimidating? Does it just need to be the right balance of introductory stuff and technical stuff, or what?
Yeah, like I think that because I think that in a Web 2 audience, yes, that would be overwhelming. I think in a journalist Web 2 audience, it's gonna, it's gonna tap into that journalist itch. Like, oh, one word from that conversation might stick. And then they go down the rabbit hole and then they engage with it more. So I think it's just that nuance between Web 2 versus journalist Web 2.
Oh, okay, I see. That makes more sense, because we were talking about essentially having like a multi-sig mirror account kind of be a pilot model for a Web3 newspaper. And I think even just having these conversations, even if a Web2 journalist who's interested in this stuff, even if they just glean a little bit of it, it may be like a critical kind of connecting a couple dots that may give them like a fuller picture, like you said.
Exactly. And then they're going to be like, oh, what was that? And then they'll research it on their own. And the next time they come to our conversation, they'll know. And then they can go forward with it. So I think it's really important to have that container, but then also to not take it too far.
I totally agree. That makes sense.
Always leave them a little confused in Web3 and in dating. That's my advice. Let's see. So then maybe Crystal, I can hand it off to you with this one. That was just to say that on Saturday I talked to the I think you pronounce it Focher, the Focher guys, who honestly their mission is more aligned with what we're working on than I thought. In like, it kind of sounded to me in the beginning like they, like, just looking at their website and kind of like the elevator pitch at first, I was envisioning like they were trying to build like Instagram but with NFTs. But it turns out they're actually building something that's more like supposed to be like a full newsroom app that's based around NFTs and built on Lens protocol. And it's very cool. And I have a bias, sorry, Keith and Spencer, in favor of anyone who's living in flyover states and trying to do tech stuff. And they're in Arkansas, which is awesome, I think. So I don't know why that's important to me, but it was.
I love all of God's creatures, Eric.
I just drove through Arkansas, and that's legit. Yeah. So
I mean, they're like, we're just three guys in Bentonville, Arkansas. I'm like, what? Okay, that's awesome. But maybe Crystal, you can talk a little bit more about them because you spoke with them today.
Yeah, I just got off the call with them a couple hours ago, and I was impressed too. Like, I also thought the same from the app. I downloaded it to just play with it a little bit, and could definitely tell that they're in that beta stage. And it did seem more like Instagram at first, but then after talking to them, their vision is just exactly in alignment with parallels ours. So it was really great to dive deep into what they're working on, and they had amazing questions about the inner workings of a newsroom, or how a journalist would take a picture in the field or gather content in the field and then get it into the editor's desk, and what does that process look like, and then how can they help facilitate that process through their app, which I thought was fascinating. And I got to ask some questions, because I did have some questions about like reporting on the ground from your phone. Like, what is the encryption aspect of that? Like, because you're basically giving images with metadata up into the cloud in real time at breaking news events, and that can be an issue. So we talked about layers of encryption and giving the journalist the option to choose what aspects of that metadata will go with the image, as that will be minted with it. Because like, if you were to hand that over to somebody in Ukraine, that's a big issue. So, and they also have a lot of, I asked them about the Russian users in their Discord, because they have a whole Russian section. I said, well, if you want to give these to journalists on the ground in in a country like Ukraine, what is the relationship to Russia? And he just said that they had because Instagram was shut down in Russia early on, it kind of caught over there. So a lot of Russians, just everyday users, are using this app as a replacement to Instagram. So then we talked about the security for that as well, for those people in Russia using it that way. So I thought it was really cool to listen to them, to their questions. They had great questions about all this stuff. So I'm excited to see what unfolds with that app and work with them.
And they did some graphic work for us in the server,
Yeah.
which was cool. So that's
Yeah. That's great.
they also made a little contribution to the treasury. So
Nice.
I think they feel invested in the mission, and like I said, I think we're more on the same page than I initially thought. So that's very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Crystal, why don't you take over and
yeah. So
go
the
for it.
UNC connection. So I went ahead and followed up based on your message, Eric, about what is it? It's called the Center for Innovation and Sustainability in Local Media. So I got on the phone with my one of my mentors. He gave me the skinny on what's going down at the UNC J School. I won't get into it now because it's drama, academic politics. But he did connect me with the new leadership at that center. And so she returned the email. So we're setting up a Calendly time to meet. I think I put it in our core there to see what times you guys can hop on next week with her. So I think that's going to be great because they've built an entire center about supporting local media. And I mentioned, what we do, and I sent the link in that email to JournoDAO, and there wasn't any hesitation to get back to me. So that makes me really excited that they're open to the conversation. And then the new dean at the journalism school is also focused on local media. It'll take him a while to get into the groove of things, but I think this winter we'll be able to reach out and see if there's some opportunities for collaboration with them, because they're going to be working on diversity issues, but also on local media. So I think it'd be great because we'll have some proof of concept and some more frameworks and things tested to work with them. So I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. And I'm meeting with, I'm going to be meeting with some of the one professor that connected us. I told him a little bit about what we were up to here at JournoDAO, and I had explained blockchain and DAOs to him over coffee last summer, and he whipped out, he's 74. So he whipped out his notebook and he's taken his notes on things he needs to research. So when we hopped on the phone the other day, and he was worried about one of his community newspapers that he built through UNC in collaboration with Durham. It's called the Durham Voice. Did a collaboration with a community college, and then they went out into the community and trained people to be citizen journalists, like churches and social organizations. And so they've had this publication online for 12 years. And he was worried about the server location. It was through the journalism school. And as the journalism school goes through different types of leadership, he's like, what happens to the server? And I said, well, that's what we're working on. Once you decentralize that, then that's no longer a concern. And then he just lit right up. He's like, well, we need to talk more. So I think when the more we have those conversations through the pain point of journalists and what they're trying to accomplish, I think that it definitely opens the door up to, to everything that we're doing here. So, yeah.
Very cool. And do you have a sense, so the person that you'd be doing a call with next week, do you have a sense of like how crypto literate they are?
No, I haven't dug too deep, but she's been working with or managing the Daily Tar Heel, which is or overseeing the school publication. So I know she's connected with a lot of young journalists, and I'm sure young journalists have brought this up.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really, I'm going to do a little bit more digging. She also has connections, used to work with Poynter Institute, and I think through the Charlotte Observer as well, or the Charlotte newspaper. But yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'm sure Poynter has looked at some of the blockchain stuff. I know I've seen it somewhere on their site or on their radar. So
very cool.
And if y'all want to jump on that call, yeah, just let me know. I told her there might be 3 or 4 of us that would jump on that, so you guys can ask questions too, if we can sync it up.
It'll definitely depend on COVID and travel status for me. Hey Troy, where are you?
Hey guys. Here I am ready to crash your party. I'm so behind on I'm doing good. I don't want to take much time blabbing. I have nothing to contribute other than to try to catch up on what's going on. So I just got back from Dallas yesterday, and before that I had COVID, and so I'm like post-COVID glow and exhausted from a music festival.
Well, still
Was
going
this
though. That's awesome.
was this the 2022 version of the McKinney Festival?
Yes, yeah, the
Cool.
26th anniversary. So I was there promoting my film project, and it was good. I was good for that. So it was time well spent.
Good.
So-
Well, all you missed, I think, Troy, is that Flora has COVID and I do not have COVID. So,
Flora has it. Oh man.
Yeah.
I am not surprised. I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised. It's
Yeah.
spreading like wildfire in this town. It's crazy.
yeah, it's something. We were just kind of going around and doing updates of where people are at on different stuff. Crystal, anything else that you wanted to share?
I feel like I have 10,000 things, but I've forgotten them all. We're in my 3 p.m. post, like brain gets slightly mushy for an hour or two zone. I do want to add something in when we get to the NFT founder thing that Keith and I talked about, but we can do that later.
Well, what about you, Keith? Any quick updates? Anything?
No, just that progress continues on the voting app. I've been working on that a lot. I think you successfully like got in right when I invited you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
did try connecting a wallet to it though, just so you know, because wherever I was, I think I was on my phone and I couldn't connect my phone to it.
okay.
But I did I got to the point where it said connect wallet.
Mhm.
Do you need, let me know if you need that tested. Yeah, because I was on my phone at that moment.
Yeah, so it'll probably be, I don't know. I always say a week and then it's like a month, but it's a lot closer than it was last week. And feels like I'm just wiring up the claim page that I sent the prototype out for it. So I'm just like making that real. And then and then turning on like the voting for actual proposals. And then I think we'll have like the end-to-end thing where you type up a proposal on discourse in like the right category, and then it shows up in the voting app with that category, and then you can vote on it. And then every like month or however long you decide, then there's like a minting of tokens, and then the admin just kind of enters in the percentage of the token mint that everybody gets, and theoretically that's generated from a coordinate circle or however people can do it. And then once that's in, you go to a claim page to claim that amount of tokens, and in order to do that you have to delegate them in case you miss a vote or whatever, and then that determines your voting power on the actual proposal. So there's kind of like there's like the whole minting claiming thing, and then there's the generating a proposal and voting thing, but they all kind of you have to claim before you can vote, because then you don't get any tokens. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think the voting thing is like I don't know how complicated that's going to be, but it's all been pretty straightforward so far, just a lot of details. And yeah, as part of that, we set up a discourse. I think we should use that in any variety of ways, not just for the voting app. Eric, I saw you posted a couple things, but I think that kind of unlocks some different types of discussions and communication that doesn't really happen on Discord. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better if people can get in the habit of it, or if you can move more in-depth discussions there from Discord, like it definitely is less likely to get lost, as I mean, shit gets lost in Discord pretty easily.
mm-hmm. I think that could, if we have this newsletter going out, that can be just people's main, pulse of the DAO, and then that can like link out to different Discord or discourse posts, and then like the super long form like blog posts, and then all the real-time stuff can happen in Discord. And I'm sure somebody will integrate that all at some point in the future, but I think it's considering what we're trying to do, I think it's an acceptable amount of friction. And once you get used to it, I mean, we got used to like email and all the other nonsense after a while. So
yeah, and it does, I mean, we don't have to get into this, but it does seem like there's a thing with like basically once you're more than like 2 days, I mean, it's kind of, I guess email's the same. Like once you're more than 2 days behind on Discord, it becomes like, that cycle where it's too intimidating to try to get caught up, and then you just ignore it forever.
yeah,
Like so many servers, I'm just not. It's like, oh, there's 107 unseen notifications on Bankless. Yeah, I think I'm done.
yeah,
Yeah, I have that problem too. We did discourse at Unlock and it worked really well. And
Cool.
we had a really good rhythm of basically what Keith just described, but once it was in the workflow, and that was part of what I did, is kind of monitor that. It worked really well. I liked the way that it wasn't more of a formal discussion, but it was definitely more of a different voice, but you went there to get lots of information in a more human way, I guess, instead of having it all just vomited at you in Discord.
hmm
I like it.
yeah. And I think it might be worth zooming out and viewing like what this is all for. And in my mind, like we're seeing a lot of DAOs run up against the wall of like as you scale, it becomes impossible to do like the day-to-day work while being truly decentralized. And so with like the voting app, I'm hoping will like unlock small working groups, the ability to like work quickly and autonomously on things, but still have like a channel of feedback to the DAO, where like if one group goes totally off course from what everyone else wants, then like their delegations can be like pulled back, and then they actually can't, just start making autonomous decisions like that go against the will of the DAO. But assuming like, everyone's doing good work and everything, then those teams like of hopefully like, I don't know, 3 or 4, who knows how big it's going to turn out to be, but they can just do like day-to-day stuff, document it, and everyone can just go back and see all the votes that happened. And if like 3 or 4 people have enough voting power and a certain expertise to reach a quorum by themselves, then like if they're all working on something and they just need to decide this thing in the group, then they can decide that, and it could just be up to like 4 or 5 people voting like in that instance. And then like the rest of the DAO can like inspect what's all those votes as they come in, like if they want to. But I think generally your people will find that just like 95% of stuff that's being decided on, you're either like, well, I'm glad somebody's taking care of that, not me, or like, or you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And then if not, you can be like, oh, I don't like what this team's doing, so I'm going to pull my delegations from like the people who voted the way that I don't want to.
Right.
But just for that topic, like marketing or whatever, and then give them to people. So like that working group might switch depending on like who has enough votes to like establish a quorum among them. So yeah, I just wanted to talk through that a little bit, because it seems like I'm just saying like, oh yeah, I'm working on this voting app, but it's like the reason I'm working on it is because I view it as like the highest priority, because then we can unlock a lot of different things. Like Eric, you kind of mentioned that. I mean, I wouldn't frame it as like dropping balls or whatever, because it's a DAO and like you're not like I don't think anyone's expecting you to do more than you're able to do or whatever. And if balls drop, that means that nobody wanted that to happen or it wasn't prioritized or whatever. So
Well, it's a self accountability thing too. I'm
Right.
letting myself down.
Well, yeah, I think that's how DAOs should be, right? Like the person you let down is yourself, and there's not a bunch of people yelling at you.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I think we're all seeing the expansion and like these projects. There's too many for us to do. How are they going to get done? And so I think, in my mind, like getting this voting platform in place is like how we attack that. So
Yeah, I mean, like in my mind, it's like kind of a dream come true because like I'm not a particularly good manager. There's a reason I'm a freelancer. I mean, I can only manage myself, and not even that well. So like, yeah, I mean, like the entire idea of kind of having, you know, an organization just of like-minded people that you can kind of tap in and contribute. You know, it's yeah. I would love to. Now we're just talking about the basics of DAOs, but are you thinking of like testing that first with Republic?
there aren't, I mean, I'm like, it's me and a person named Phil who's like kind of been my day-to-day person on that, but then he just got a job at Pool, which is really cool because Pool's like a huge player in the space. But
Is
since
that the
there's
same as Pool Together?
no, it's just maybe do a search for Pool Data Union.
Okay.
They kind of branched off from Streamer. Um, so there's just not enough like active people in there, and plus a lot of the stuff that's being decided is like core like product stuff that like I don't, it's not open source yet, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think Factland and JournoDAO are like the two that would get the most use out of it right away.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much my update. But I wanted to, maybe the NFT thing is for the discussion section or what. But that was just kind of like me noting that I did that proposal. It's just that Crystal and I met, and I kind of synthesized my understanding of like what we could actually act on, and I feel like the path is clear to just go ahead and do it if it sounds good and with minimal risk that we're like locking ourselves into a bad framework or whatever going forward. It seems like we kind of went over some scenarios of like what might happen in the future, and like if, you know, is there any way that we kind of paint ourselves into a corner, and it seems like we could pretty much adapt what we do to whatever like new NFT stuff comes along. And it was good because it made me research royalties, and it seems like, you know, the early NFTs actually didn't, and still I think most today don't actually have royalties built into the contract, and it's really just like a registry that everyone has like agreed on to use, or it's internal to the NFT platforms. Like OpenSea kind of has its own like royalty registry, or just like keeping track of that stuff and enforcing it. But then there's like everyone's trying to agree on a registry so that if you take your NFTs over to this platform or this platform or this platform, then you're like your royalties are still enforced. But I thought that was pretty interesting that it's not actually baked into the contract in a lot of ways. It seems like there's places who are doing that, but I don't think they are like, it's not like just another 721 template that you can use. It's like, it's a whole ecosystem that you kind of have to buy into, like the Rarible ecosystem or some of these other places, or like charged particles or something like that. So like we could keep researching and whatever, and might find something that might change our like course of action, but to me, it's like not worth it's not worth it. We should just move ahead. A lot of people have moved ahead with a lot less thought than we have. So
are you saying that the royalties thing, so if we use unlock, are you saying that the royalties thing basically isn't portable, or it is?
it is, because it's totally separate from that process.
Okay.
And it's something that like a lot of people minted NFTs like before the idea of royalties, and they have since
Yeah.
like retroactively applied royalties via this royalty registry or on OpenSea or wherever they take it. And so if like people who didn't even put it in their original contract can like participate retroactively, I feel like we can just do the unlock thing, and then the royalties is almost like a separate thing. And that's almost like a different ecosystem question of like, if we're just going to be on OpenSea for the short term, we can probably just use their royalties, and then as that branches out, we can just see which marketplace uses what registry or framework or whatever. And then it's kind of like a case by case, depending on where we're selling it, more than like how we're generating it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We're kind of at the place of that. Did we arrive at that? Using unlock on mainnet seems like the way to go.
I think so. Is that right, Crystal?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, most of our big NFT purchasers, collectors will be on mainnet, and they'll want it on mainnet for their wallets. So that's the most logical thing.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of like this might be the last time that like gas and ETH price kind of slump enough to be like relatively affordable, you know, like I could see in the next bull run, like it's just not even returning to this level even after it's over. So it might be nice to kind of squeak in and be like one of the last like NFT projects before everything got crazy.
It's crazy today. I just checked a minute ago. It's like $124. But I think it's because there's some merging going. There's some I can't even articulate it, but
Rapston,
yes,
yeah,
that thing. So
that thing, the test net is getting merged, basically,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, we're about to find out if it's all gonna, implode.
Yeah.
So it hasn't yet. So.
Yeah, so I think we could move on to like, I think the next thing to do is, I mean, kind of like you alluded to, is just snipe like a good cheap time to like do the unlock thing. And that's really just setting up the NFT factory basically, right? That's what we have to pay for, but then each individual person will pay the minting for like the individual NFTs.
We only have to pay once. Yeah,
what's
to
the
mint
correct
a lock.
What's the correct verbiage around that? So like that's like deploying the smart contract, right? When you talk about setting up the factory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do I say that without sounding like an idiot? That's actually writing and deploying the smart contract that people will mint off of later, right?
Yeah, I think that's why unlock has termed them like the lock and the key, so that you don't really worry about the smart contracts and like where it's implemented and where the code is and stuff, because basically you just have like as the owners of the NFT, as like the artists or the creators, we pay to mint the factory, and then everyone else comes and like mints off of there and pays their own gas for those transactions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're minting the lock, and the lock is the smart contract. And then when people come to buy the key, then they're buying the key and they get the NFT with the key.
In both cases, but in both cases, the correct verb actually is minting, because you said you're minting the factory.
I think it's deploying.
Yeah.
The contract or the factory, and then minting is a special function on that contract that you that you call and pay for, and it's actually like labeled mint or whatever in the contract.
I worked at Unlock for 9 months and I still mixed them up all the time. I thought Julian was gonna just smack me one time because I mean, not literally, but because I was like, oh yeah, we got to get the locks. He's like, you mean the keys? How do you not know this? I'm like, oh, it just all jumbles right in my brain. So yeah.
And so when you go to set that up, will all that be set up through Unlock?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then they give us a very basic like web interface where people can mint like right off the bat. But if we want to, brand our own or just move it onto our website or whatever we want to do, it looks like they make it pretty easy to I can interact with their SDK over JavaScript in the browser, and then we can get our own interface going. Like, probably wouldn't take me more than a day to create our own mint button on the site or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the croissant example is a really good one. It should be a case study on the website, and then also to follow on Twitter. He really did a ton of customization when he deployed Unlock throughout the entire system that he built.
Yeah. So that might be worth it, but also like I think I like splitting things apart into like their smallest things so that just go do this, don't worry about those other things. And so
yeah, there's definitely a very easy way to do it too. I mean, you can just have that URL, that purchase URL, and then it's not super customized, but it's exactly what you need as well.
Yeah. So. And then I guess the one thing that needs to be determined is like the wallet that deploys the lock as like the creator. And so we could just do the fact or the JournoDAO.eth wallet, I guess. Or we could set up like a multi-sig, or I think you can transfer it to a multi-sig later.
Yeah, and it should be in the documentation too, about how to set up permissions within the locks and stuff in case you do need to hand the lock over or whatever. Okay. So it's in there somewhere, I think.
Okay. So the actual deploying of it might end up being your job, Eric, for the JournoDAO.eth.
Got it. And are we last I heard, did we settle on 1.5 1,000 at 1.5 ETH?
Yep, 1.5 ETH.
Cool. So what do you think are like next steps? Like kind of starting to collect names somewhere for a whitelist? Do we want to have like any kind of just like throw open the doors to signups? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we just allow people to express interest in any way they want, and then we keep like maybe just a spreadsheet of their name and email, and then we just let them know when they can mint.
Yeah, there's another idea that popped into my brain the other day, and I don't know, this might be too much to do, especially if we're going to do this soon, but we could create those public goods NFTs on Optimism for free. And that could serve as the whitelist. So somebody collects that NFT, they would just have to pay like 50 cents to mint the key as we build it on lock. Mm-hmm. And then issue like 100 or a couple hundred for each drop with different NASA images. And then that becomes the whitelist. So we have that list of Ethereum addresses. So they get first priority to purchase the founder NFT. And then that would give time to build a little bit of buzz. So like if you dropped them periodically, like here's 100 this week, here's 100, 2 weeks from now. And then say a month or two later, you've got this buzz that's built and all these people collected these public goods NFTs. And then that in conjunction with the founder NFT, if they purchase that, would give special access on the Discord server too, like through the guild or whatever, like that add-on perk. So that might be too much. That might be too complicated. I can handle the visual side of that and gather all the images because I got all nerded out on the public goods website the other night. So there's so many good things in there.
No, well, I'd like to do that with you too. I'm just thinking like we can do both where
Yeah.
I think people who do go that route will kind of have like a special status, whatever that is. But I think we can also just for the normies and people who this might be like their first NFT that they ever mint, we can at least just have them email like they want their name on this just so we can like get a sense for how many people are interested.
Yeah, definitely. And with the OPG token, I could also create just a little video that shows people what it is that they're doing. So it could be a tutorial blog post, like this is what you're doing. If you really want to dive into Web3 right now, you know, take this route, get this free-ish token, and then if not, go right over here and get it through email.
So what is I meant to ask you more about this. Like I don't think the public goods NFT, like I don't think I understand it. Or and the OPG token, those are connected.
Yeah, so you in the Discord the other night, I think we posted something about the CNN NFTs, and then you made the point that those were.
That was me. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I got just that little itch. I'm like, oh, I got to go scratch this. So I was watching a movie and I start poking around for those free NASA photos, and I found this website that I signed up for that I have now access to all these free public goods images. So I made NFT on Optimism on Unlock on the fly to show that it could be done in 10 minutes, and then we could just offer it for free as kind of like a guerrilla marketing campaign, and then stand it up right next to CNN and be like, hey guys, come over here and get a free NFT for us because it's a public good.
Okay,
So
I kind of thought that's what you were going for.
And I just kind of connected it to the founder NFT as a way to create that whitelist, because once you have that Ethereum address, it's like having the email address. So you can have both. You have the email list, and then you have an Ethereum list of people that want to participate. And then if you keep doing that, you're training people on public goods at the same time as seeing that the CNN thing's slightly irrelevant. And then, oh, here's all these people doing this thing over here. Let me learn more and let me participate over here. So it just kind of scratches, just little nuggets of curiosity, I guess.
So it's basically be using it as like the inverse of a POAP, instead of proving that you're there, it's proving that you're standing in line. It's like taking a number at the doctor's office. Only it's much cooler now. Okay, cool.
And then we pair that up with the NFT token down the road and have a special perk, like say we do something in person. If you've got both of those in your wallet, you're OG, but OPG because it's open public goods. It's old public gangsters. I don't know. It's just kitschy marketing shit. So
hey Matt, welcome. We're just talking about NFTs.
Hey Matt.
Welcome. Yeah, very exciting to be here. Sorry I'm ultra late, but I just wanted to pop in. Hopefully your guys are still kind of discussing things, but happy to be here.
Yeah, we go long.
Yeah.
These are usually 90 minutes, so we're gonna go for a little while longer. And when we were just talking about our founder NFT that we're planning out and talking about starting a whitelist for that.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to keeping updated with that.
And we lost Spencer. He had an update, but he had to jump, so we'll have to catch him on Discord, I guess. Cool. So yeah, anything else on the founder NFT front or the OPG front?
Not other than just talking time frame. Like I don't know. I think we could do the deployment in like the next few days if you wanted to, or Crystal, if you want to focus on like the NASA thing first. But in any case, I'll set up like a maybe like an email distribution, like NFT at JournoDAO. that we can just throw around in an email, and people can email their info in, and then we'll consider them on the list or whatever.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll pull a couple of photos just to play with for the NASA thing, and then if we do it, we do it. If not, no worries.
I mean, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, it'd be cool to just kind of start, that discussion and start kind of trolling a little bit, maybe before even, mentioning the whole founder and FT thing. And then that can, lead into it. We can, just start with some tweets about CNN's NASA NFTs. Go from there. Cool. So and then just put like a sign up on the website, you think, Keith, and just put it around social media and just spread the word organically that way.
Yeah, after we deploy it, then we can do whatever. We can work on doing a custom, like, actual mint button for the website, or we can just link off to the page that we'll already have through Unlock to do it. That's kind of like the most minimum thing. And then I don't know what the best way to promote it on Twitter is or anything, so I'll leave that to you all.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that'll be fun. I like that, kind of having that fun lead into it too. I think that'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. So one thing that I wanted to spend some time on was the conversation that I had with JournoDAO and with Jordan, who you were on a call with him once upon a time as well, Keith. And for the benefit of everyone else, JournoDAO is they're kind of a data. They're a bunch of data science nerds, including a guy that who lives in Santa Fe, where we have a lot of common acquaintances, at least, and know him by reputation. So I've kind of we've had our first call with them. It's been unclear, how aligned they are with like the JournoDAO mission. And like it's kind of funny, like their business model, I don't necessarily know that it's certainly not focused around journalism or media much, but they're building this data platform that's kind of like an interesting way to explore blockchain data, and then kind of pick at and document like the different relationships between transaction wallets, whatever, and then you store those relationships and then kind of visualize all of this stuff. So it's basically a data analysis and visualization tool is kind of my understanding of it. And so it feels like they've kind of like built this tool, and then they had like a Genesis cohort that they asked me to be in. They I basically asked all different people to play with this platform, kind of going in search of use cases. And one of the use cases that they seem to be interested in is journalism and media. Because I mean, basically what I did is I took the Ukraine DAO story that I wrote, and I was like, okay, here's how I would visualize all the connections from this story, using your platform. Really just like kind of like using their platform to do like, the strings on the wall conspiracy theory thing, and they seem to love that. So that has kind of led to so they're basically going to launch this platform. August 1st is the plan, and they're going to be selling memberships to it. And so it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of analogous to like, paying for membership to the Bloomberg terminal, if you're familiar with that, which is just kind of like, a subscription to all kinds of industry data from every industry. You know, it's useful for journalists, it's useful for investors, useful for all kinds of people. And so they kind of have like a little bit like, it's like the blockchain version of that, and with some extra like analysis and visualization functionality. And so they're looking to sell that, memberships to that, to, you know, kind of, I think I asked him what he thought the audience was, and he said it was, you know, probably like executives and investors and analysts. You know, and I said, well, you know, and he talked about, you know, people using it to do due diligence. People use, I think they had three main use cases they went to. It's like basically people who are new to Web3 using it to like explore communities and the different relationships between the communities and how they could slot into Web3 that way. And then people who are already involved in Web3 using it to do analysis and due diligence. And then there's another kind of analysis I don't remember now. And I was like, well, you know, a journalist would use this as like due diligence in reverse, whereas somebody's using it to do due diligence to prove that something is, you know, worth investing in or worth getting involved in. Journalists would use the same tools to look for shit that's fucked up. So, you know, to to look for the stuff that wouldn't pass due diligence, in other words. So they're basically into the idea of it being used that way. And so we talked about, then we got into the stuff that we've been discussing with Nick, and, you know, ways to use blockchain analysis basically for investigative journalism, and, you know, kind of threw out some of the potential stories that we've discussed. And I kind of laid it out as there's like a spectrum of ambition, with, you know, like the most ambitious thing you could possibly do being to investigate what looks like money laundering on the blockchain. And I said, I don't think, like, number one, I'm still not convinced you can really prove that beyond a doubt. And number two, definitely can't do it by August 1st, I don't think. So like on the less ambitious end of the scale would be to use their tool to report out a case of like, you know, pay for play with crypto YouTubers, or, you know, documenting. A particularly interesting one is, you know, all the celebrities, and this is already kind of public, you know, people have already put this on YouTube, on Twitter, different cases of really influential people backing essentially NFT rug pulls. And I shared some threads in the Clarity from some other blockchain researchers who, you know, basically compiled a list of celebrities that most frequently endorse rug pulls, with like, you know, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, I think, near the top of the list. I mean, I think that in itself is an interesting story that we could do. So there's a few other ones. There's the ones that I could actually, that have actually kind of been already leaked on Twitter, I put in the Clarity document. There's another case that I shouldn't get into on this recording of basically, I think I have suspicions about certain tech pros basically using impact DAOs as like kind of a tax dodge. That would be tough to report out by August 1st too, but that's, you know, the kind of things. There was a hack of Bored Ape Yacht Club not too long ago, and I put an example of another analysis firm's, you know, kind of their kind of trace where the funds went from that hack. So these are just examples of the kind of things that we could do. So the deal, as Jordan and I discussed it, would probably mean we could get like a little squad going, and that could be like a few of us. Maybe we pull in Nick if that's something that he's up for. And then I think our little squad would be paired with, they have like a data person that helped build the platform, who would kind of help us navigate it, and help use the tools and the visualization tools. And all that would go towards collaborating on a piece that could be, you know, published by August 1st when they go live with their platform and start selling memberships. They basically want to have this journalism use case live. Like potentially, it could be something that I could publish on my Forbes column just to give everyone a little bit of visibility. And another reason to do it on Forbes is I own all the rights to those stories, so that could then be republished on our Mirror site or blog or wherever as well. And what was the other thing I was going to say about that? There's like a slight chance, I think, that Forbes might freak out and not want it, mainly just because if there's a relationship where JournoDAO is paying us to use their platform, I could see potentially I think there's a small chance that might torpedo that, in which case we would just publish it on our channels. So, and then we can, and I think we could pay whoever works on this. I mean, so basically Jordan said he would like to have a proposal up by early next week, including a budget, what we would need on our end to do this, and kind of what I think, laying out some of the examples I just laid out of potential stories and what resources we would need from them. And he thought that, it would be no problem for the proposal to pass, but they need to do something formal. So that's kind of where we're at. Does that, thoughts, reactions, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'm in. That sounds like a lot of fun. We did something
Yeah.
very similar at my hackerspace. We had access to databases to search for victims of human trafficking, and we used this
Cool.
massive, I think it was like Polaris or something that they had access to through their connections with the FBI, and it was like, I just got so excited just to see that thing in motion. So I would love to see a decentralized version of that. And if we needed to, I could tap my friends too that worked on that. I'm sure they would love to crawl under the hood and help with that. And then we also did track it into money laundering, and follow the rabbit holes and found the actual institutions in the US, like the churches and whatnot, that were the fronts for those money launderers, which was fascinating.
Wow. Is that online somewhere? I'm just curious, did that result in any reporting?
I'll have to look it up because part of their research was to find these instances using these tools and then publish it for the company they worked for. So it was all put out eventually into like the Wall Street Journal and stuff. So I'll find out if those articles are still up and if they got published.
I haven't reached out to Nick about this yet because I wanted to talk to this group first, but it seems like it makes sense to pull him in and see if he's interested in contributing, particularly because some of the examples I threw at JournoDAO came from him. So, yeah. Is anyone opposed to that?
No, what are some reasons you think people would be opposed to it? It seems like just a good thing to do.
Yeah,
are there any pitfalls that you see?
No, I don't know. I don't have any, just transparency.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad that you're bringing it up. I just wasn't sure if you were like, I'm kind of worried that this thing is going to go wrong or it might go sideways in this way. But if you don't have any reservations about it, that sounds good.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I started pulling together kind of like a toolkit of basically pulling together a Twitter list of places of kind of other blockchain sleuth people, and then also some basically pages of open source intelligence online tools, just to kind of get the brainstorming going. Like I think some of the story ideas I threw out earlier, I think those could be something that we end up doing for this project. But I'm pulling together some other resources just to help generate leads as we put together this proposal. yeah, I think it's pretty exciting and pretty interesting stuff for sure. So yeah, so there's already Jordan already started a page on the Diamond DAO Notion account for our proposal. So we could start drafting something in a Google Doc or in Discourse and then put it in there when it's ready.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've got some time over the weekend too, to help with proposal stuff as well.
Cool, awesome. All right, well, I'll just kind of, I'll start something up, just kind of, based on what I just spewed here over the last 15 minutes, and try to get that in written form, and away we go from there. So that was that was the key thing that I just wanted to make sure that we got in today so that we can start on it and get that proposal up. The other thing that's timely is the Gitcoin round that just started. And I believe so far we've got $5 whole from yours truly. Like the Gitcoin thing, I don't know what you think. It kind of feels like it's kind of like a going through the motions thing, because it just feels like it's mainly a network thing, and our network hasn't grown a ton from the last round. So yeah. I don't know. I'm hesitant to invest a lot of time and energy into it. Any other thoughts on ways to approach it this time?
I'm with you, and also I think last time I thought there was like first mover advantage, when it's kind of like the opposite, where you don't really know until the end like how well you did compared to everyone else. And so
it was pretty dispiriting to see the match just like get sucked away at the end, for sure. Yeah. It's interesting to see I don't know that it's a flaw in the system, but it's the dynamics of it were dispiriting at the end, for sure.
Yeah, so that made me feel like we should just do a big push on our network like at the last 2 or 3 days or so, and actually having like more realistic numbers might inspire people to donate more to actually have a higher match or something, because the people who donate first, it's like, oh, well, I can like get a huge match with just like $1, where at the end it might be like, oh, $1 doesn't go very far, so maybe I'll put in like 5 or 10 or whatever. So
yeah, I like that strategy. I hadn't thought about that. That's smart.
Yeah, so maybe next town hall we can talk about when to do a push or something.
Okay, cool. If you guys want to keep going, I thought we could dig into what you brought up yesterday, Crystal, about covering stories like the pitch from Gitcoin to write about them. Like I have where I don't want to talk first. What do you guys think about that whole deal?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, I mentioned to the person's DMing me still on Twitter about it, and I told him that I'd bounce it off the team, that the team was thinking about maybe just doing an overall because we're stretched for time right now. And they said, that's great. Just let them know if they need help with anything. But what I noticed, so I joined All for Climate DAO to, they have some paid writing stuff. And I was just curious to see how they're running their DAO. It's pretty interesting. But what I'm finding is a lot of people just need editorial help. Even if it's just like, like I looked at some proposals on the Gitcoin. I'm like, y'all forgot your period at the end of the sentence. Like, come on. So it's almost like, and it's not something we can do now, but I kind of want to plant the seed, because I could see a great onboarding for journalists transitioning to Web3 to begin covering Web3. You could just give them the basics and then also connect them with the outlets that need the help. These DAOs need that help. And like the All for Climate DAO has money involved. Like they've got some funding. So their bounties, there's, a compensation involved, and they're very big on that. So I think it'd be a great way for journalists to get in there. They might not be able to write. It might end up being more of a PR piece, but at the same time, it might also be a great way to establish a relationship and give them a way to get their teeth wet in this space. Yeah. All right, that was a bad metaphor. Sink their teeth into the space. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Bite their toes off in space.
I guess like just for like the size that we're at now, I think there's just like no reality where I'm, basically going to take an hour and like write basically a piece of, promotional material for Gitcoin right now. I could, but like I would be willing to do like, like I threw some money. I went on Gitcoin and I searched for journalism to see, and found a couple of things, and I threw a couple bucks at like 3 other campaigns that aren't affiliated with Keith, and and well, I threw yours some bones too. So, but like I could get into that, but it's I think like for the resources that we have now, like like setting up a job board and like a bounty board, that I think that makes a lot of sense. And I did set up a channel in the Discord for that, and I posted a few things there. But I think probably a majority of people have the Discord on mute at this point. So like I think like when there's more people, the other thing is like PubDAO is actually set up to like do that right now. Like I think they actually have people who are like hungry to like write and edit and maybe willing to do it for, I don't even know what the rates are in Web3. They're probably all over the place. So like when we have like a network of people that like are hungry to do that kind of writing, and we can give them that writing, and then we can say that this is we offer this like editorial services. I think that makes sense. Like, and I also think like what makes the most, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but what makes the most sense is like for where we're at right now is I think we could offer really good like just media consulting advice to like literally everybody in Web3, like you were saying, like beyond the punctuation, even like with Gitcoin, it's like I don't know that, I mean, yeah, we could help you with writing stories, but one of the first conversations I had with Scott Moore was like, I really think it would go a long way for Gitcoin if you just found a way to like tell more narrative stories and like find the characters that are like these success stories. And that's kind of what I was getting at on Twitter, is like, rather than like, because the instinct is like, we're donating $3 million. It's like the instinct is to throw the money numbers, but like it's crypto. People see those fucking numbers all the time. Like what's more interesting and what sticks more is like, characters and people and stories. And like, that's what you actually need to get coverage in the mainstream media. And like, that's the kind of advice that, we could give all these Web3 protocols and folks that are looking for media help. That's like, really high value, and I think would be worth everybody's time. That said, everything that I think you we're thinking of doing, Crystal, I would want to do all that stuff. I just can't imagine spending time on it like at this moment in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. That totally makes sense. Yeah, and I just got excited. I was like, "Ooh, free exposure. Let's do some writing."
Right.
But yeah, and then the deeper I got into it, I'm like, this is a down the road thing. Like it just makes more sense when we've scaled up. And I love the idea of consulting for story. I mean, I was just poking through. There's a few bounties in All for Climate of some of the climate related proposals. And one of the ones is for a native, I think it's called Native. I'm not exactly sure, but for an indigenous tribe, Natives for Tech, I think is their organization. And so I accepted that bounty, and I just started reading through their story, and I was like, oh, I just want to go document all of this. Like, there's so many good stories in there, and those narratives that you're talking about, that a lot of people just don't know how to tell their own narrative, and then how to send that narrative where it needs to go, for sure.
I mean, it's kind of hard because it's like, there's like, there's clearly a need for all these things. There's a need for people to help, spread the word about Gitcoin's campaign. There's a need for editing help, writing help, media consulting, media literacy help. Like, there's a need for all of this in Web3 right now, and nobody's filling that need. And like, we could fill that need. I just don't know when or how at this point.
I think we should put, like we talked about before, putting like just a web form on the website, and just maybe put it to people to like describe what they need, and like the actionable ways that we know we need some like more details from these incoming requests and stuff. So like, to me, it all feels a little too non-specific, and it feels like when, like Eric, kind of what you're saying is like, when you do a consulting gig with like software development, it's usually like people are like say that they need this thing, but they don't really know what they need. It's like, I need a website. And it's like, well, why do you need a website? Like, oh, actually, you don't need a website. You just need like an Instagram account or something like that. And so that's going to be kind of a tough thing. It's like the people who could most use our help are maybe not like, no, they don't know how to reach out or know that we're the right people. So maybe like a web form would get us in those discussions. And since we're all pretty, it's not like there's a lot of bandwidth, that would at least kind of allow us to collect like inbound interests and kind of respond in our own time.
Yeah.
Hey, if I can interrupt for a second, Crystal, can you describe this bounty system that you just referenced? How does this bounty, walk me through that real quick?
Yeah, so basically when they have a need, they use an app called DWork, which I actually really do like.
When you say they meaning
Oh, the DAO. So in this case, it's
any DAO. It could be
yeah, any DAO. And usually the bounties come from like programming. So you put out a bounty if there's a bug, for someone to find a bug in your code, and then you say, all right, you get X amount of dollars if you find the bug. And now in DAOs, that bounty is also used for things like writing, marketing, community management, finding bugs in code. And then you scan the bounty board. So on this DAO in particular, they have, right now they had some writing stuff open. So you scan what writing stories they need, or tasks. And then, you apply for the one that fits your skill set, and then they accept, and then you go back and forth, and then you write the article or do the task, and then they pay you in the compensation that's listed in that bounty.
Gotcha. So is this like a standardized part of the DAO vernacular where everybody knows what a bounty is, and well-established
Pretty
DAOs will
common.
actually have a component on their website that says these are the bounties that we need to fill? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And it's a great way to crowdsource, so that people know exactly, like Keith was saying earlier, with task management and what's been done, who's accountable for what, and then what's going to be delivered and when. Especially if you put a compensation component in there, then you can really, track what's going on and how it's happening.
Right. Okay.
And it's a good way to pay for some of the DAO life stuff. Like, as a freelancer, I'm like, okay, who's got bounties that I can do that are exciting and engaging in my mission, but also allows me to do work in other places that aren't able to provide compensation yet. So.
Right. And do you find that you're able to find those pretty efficiently, or do you have to dig hard and deep to find?
Oh, I'm just getting back into it. So it just kind of depends. Sometimes the bounties are a hot mess, and some of the stuff that I saw like about a year ago, it was just a free for all. Now that DAOs are scaling, and there's more of them, and they're at different stages. It's interesting. Like this one in particular, their bounties are good, but they're getting spammed a lot. So people are coming in and just spamming them with all this. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And then their team can't manage it because they're getting all this inbound stuff. So yeah, it's kind of the Wild West still.
I see. And are you noticing any trends where there might be a perceived demand for like valid critical analysis, or dare we call it journalism, like a need for people, experts, to write meaty articles about, say, what a DAO does, or to track their relevance in the zeitgeist? I mean, are you identifying a market for journalists? I guess that's really what I'm trying to ask.
I haven't really been looking at it from that perspective. It's more like, what does the DAO need? So what, and I've only seen a handful that are doing this, so I haven't looked super deep. Most are coming at it from that PR marketing perspective. So they want the content written kind of in that, not in a Web 2 format, but, you know, help me promote this by telling this story, but not in an investigative journalistic perspective. But I think as more things come on board, more outlets come on board, you might see more of that. And I'm just looking at just a very tiny little fraction of the ecosystem. So
I wonder if there'd be a way to like reverse engineer that, and instead of going out and looking for writing gigs, if you will, instead to have a forum where people might come looking for Web3 specialized journalists, right? Like a job board, or where they come to us looking for our credentialed expertise, you know?
I feel like it's kind of happening organically on Twitter, just from what I've just seen in the past few weeks, but just for the requests and things we've been tagged in. I think as more people are aware that here's a DAO of journalists, I think what you're talking about is going to surface. So I think it is going to happen, and people are going to come to an organization like this and be like, hey, we need journalists, and we need journalists that are Web3 fluent. So that's kind of where I see, if we were able to offer something like services with, you know, people that came into our community that were working journalists and want to get involved, I could see like in a year or so that is a viable thing that would happen.
For sure. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Complete sense. So positioning ourselves to maybe fulfill that need could be worthwhile.
The person you were DMing with, Crystal, they were like they were looking for basically news coverage, right? Like they were looking for journalists to just write about the start of the cycle.
Yeah, that was the initial tweet. And again, I think it's how I found you guys and Unlock. Like I respond to tweets at like midnight when I probably shouldn't, and I just interject myself into a thread, and then like the next day I'm like, oh, shit, what did I stick us in? So take that as you will. So yeah, so then he DM'd me. I didn't actually expect him to DM me. So so that's where the conversation kind of came. Yeah, I think they were initially trying to get it into actual traditional media. So that's where this, you know, JournoDAO could, and I guess this has to be stated at the beginning, if we do decide to go down that line, that these are independent journalists. They're going to cover this from a journalistic perspective, not from a PR marketing perspective. And so they will cover the story, and then they're going to put it into wherever their connections are in legacy media. But you will get exposure. Just make sure it's the exposure that you're ready for.
I stuck a quote from Scott from Gitcoin into the story that I wrote about Ukraine DAO on Forbes. So I kind of wonder if that was like the initial genesis for reach. Although no, you actually didn't. You tagged something.
I think I tagged us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, that's one of those things that I do at midnight that I probably shouldn't. Yeah. But it happens.
If I could interject here just a little bit, I'm still trying to like get my head around like the whole JournoDAO efforts, but as far as people who need like even just good writers, I think that is so prevalent, especially in Web3 that's full of just like tech and finance bros that just talk to each other. and then like have issues getting into mass market. I know a lot of founders that like you talk to them and you look at the pitch deck for their company, and it's just like if you haven't been a professional in their field, then you're just not going to understand what they're doing. So even if just like support for people who are like a little more in touch of just like how to explain things, I've been seeing a consistent need for that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it definitely seems like it's something that like we could offer that basically functions as like service to like the membership of the DAO, who people who have writing and editing skills, and then like also a service to the greater Web3 community, like you're talking about. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with journalism, other than the fact that journalists always need writing work. So, I mean, I guess that's the way. It's like an ancillary benefit almost. It's kind of like how I would envision it.
But I see it as like a useful on-ramp to onboard journalists, to bring them over to Web3. If you let them know that, hey, there's
That's
a
true.
profound need for Web3 writers for journalism.
Yeah.
And what a great opportunity to jump in now while the competition is small and the need is great.
And I actually think like when I'm looking at like the application, the people that fill out the form to apply to join the Discord, that's like mentioned quite a bit, like that I could write. There's people that are like willing to use their writing skills, and I think these are some people that like they join the Discord, they don't see any writing work, and we never really hear from them. So yeah, like so I there is like there is a job channel in the Discord, but there's not much in it right now. So we could start like kind of doing a better job of keeping an eye out for potential opportunities and checking them in there.
Yeah, and I can start doing that because I'm looking for some to just do myself. So I can put them in there and share them, and then let that just formulate into something a little more formal as it grows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, we're beyond our allotted time. If anyone wants to stick around to talk a little bit about these folks I talked to in the wildfire zone, and little curious to hear about Quartzite, because I've looked at the website and it appears that your friend's name is Shanana. Unless I have that wrong, Crystal.
I don't know who it is. I just read the paper every time I'm out there, and I just heard stories because she's like the lone liberal in town, and everybody's like, "Oh, that liberal's putting that paper out," but they all read it. So, but she broke that one story, and then the AP picked it up a month later, and because I was just floored that the story was in the Desert Messenger, because it's that. Yeah. And then a month later, it was in the AP, and I was like, "Damn, look at her breaking news by herself in the middle of nowhere."
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have time for like 5 more minutes?
Yeah, okay. This area interests me.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this I think this email originated when we were having the conversation about the wildfires around here, and this is when you were talking, Keith, about like a potential emergency kit, and like you could drop in with a connectivity kit into a reporting situation, and everything. And I'll go ahead and give you the short full story, which is there was a video that was going around here kind of locally, a YouTube video, and it was a video basically of some like local leaders. So again, like this village that was closed off and evacuated because of the wildfires is this really isolated community. It's like really like kind of drying up and blowing away, but the people who are left there are the people who are never going to be blown away, because they've literally been there for three centuries. I mean, this community is like dates back to the mid 1700s. Like there's this whole other American history that happened in New Mexico that nobody knows about, that was going on the same time period is the revolutionary period. And so it's a really interesting, but kind of sad and very economically depressed area. And so there's this video that was circulating, in like week two or three of like this whole community is evacuated. Cops have all the state troopers have all the roads shut down. And they're like, like if you can get back in to check on your cattle, your property depends on if you happen to know the cop guarding the roadblock at that time. And a lot of people are pissed off. And so, one of like the community leaders, there's this video of him, and they're like, there's a bunch of leaders just like in a parking lot somewhere in town. And this like business owner is basically just like lecturing the sheriff, and basically, part of the lecture was like, you got to tell these feds to go to hell. And it was like, the conflict was just, you could see it brewing, where these people had enough. And again, there's like, this is on a fucking YouTube channel, there's no local media. And so I looked up who owned this YouTube channel, and it turns out that they're connected to that little PDF newsletter that I sent you the copy of. And I used to live kind of near this community. I used to live over the hill from this community. And I actually had a newsletter of my own, the valley over 15 years ago. And I'm like, I had never heard of these people, and I didn't know that this thing was going on. And so I sent that email that I think I forwarded to you, which is like, this would be, for everything that we talk about, you're trying to support local journalism and news deserts and get it going. Like, this is like the ultimate case of need for that, in terms of, not just like because of the fires, because the fires are mostly contained at this point, and we literally now have moved on from the wildfire phase of the emergency and into the persistent flash flood watch phase. I don't know if you know about that, but after a wildfire, there's just like a year or two of flash flood danger afterwards, including literally today. And so, like, there's like a year or two at least of a real urgent need for a local news source to navigate first the flood phase, and then we got a couple of years of rebuilding. So that was kind of my pitch to them, that like, we use technology to support local journalism, I think was all I said to them. Because you don't necessarily want to bring up crypto and like make people shut down if they have opinions about it already. So yeah, I don't actually know like what the next step would be. Like, I think like a simple thing, because the streamer feed isn't set up to in a way that I think would help. I could see basically just going down there and kind of just like introducing them to some of the concepts and introducing them to like the mirror walkthrough that we just did, and said like, look, you can this is a publishing platform that is going to look nicer than what you're doing, and you can like ask people to collect, donate to every piece that you publish, and let's try it out and see if it helps your publication. I don't know. And same thing, your Quartzite friend is, I would guess, a little bit more advanced technologically, and probably media literacy wise, but could be the same deal there. So I don't know, like, it just feels like an example where, like, for everything that we've been talking about, this is like the perfect place to try it. And also, if you can get people in fucking Mora, New Mexico to use crypto, I mean, these are people where it's hard to get them to use cell phones. So if you can make that sales pitch, I feel like it'll work anyway.
It feels like it'd almost be a combo of Mirror and Filter. Like, I feel like this, Matt, like this would be great for citizen journalists to have their phones, and then you use the Mirror both to publish long form, but to also curate. So you curate all these things that have happened and been posted through your app, and then put them onto Mirror as well. So the Mirror becomes the hub.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've just recently been getting into. I watched your like Mirror writing NFTs, and that's the same thing that we're doing, except not as well built out as Mirror. So we may do better just like doing like an integration type of thing with them. But
By the way,
very cool
Matt,
stuff.
I just like, for whatever reason, like I looked up your website and I checked out your website. Like it never occurred to me to see if your app was actually available on the App Store. And then
Mhm.
Crystal mentioned that she already downloaded it. This whole time I didn't realize that the app was available. So I just downloaded it an hour ago.
Yeah, the public release that's out right now is still more of like NFT photography, like more of a social platform. But just this weekend, we're about to do a public release that'll be the news and like live upload, live capture, that type of thing. So I usually don't typically like publicize that it's on the App Store until like what you download is the vision that we're going towards. So
Sure.
yeah, but thank you for checking it out. It's every download counts.
Cool. But yeah, you're right, Crystal. I mean, it could be something, right. We might have the suite of tools to try out, right here, between Mirror and Vocer. And Keith, I like the approach of like a response that you put in Discord, just in terms of kind of, easing them into things. I think even their response, I think it already shows a little bit of skepticism. I think the phrasing exactly was like, "We're willing to listen." It's like, okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's a really strong point with the small communities. Like if they're just controlled by their local doings and like people like in the rest of America don't even know what's going on there, then it's hard for them to get things by. But it just like made me think of like there was a good amount of time that people were really concerned about Flint, Michigan, and the all the things that were going on there. But like they had to reach a point where like the rest of America knew what was going on over there, and like local newsletters just can't like get that through. But something like Mirror or Vocer, where like the community as a whole or the nation as a whole is able to see, have it like a lens into what's going on in the smaller communities. I think that's valuable.
I agree. I did want to say, like, one thing I'm concerned about is part of me feels like it makes sense to kind of ease into the conversation about Web3 and kind of what we're really all about and interested. But what I'm concerned about is they can also like easily go look me up, go look JournoDAO up, and then the first thing they're going to see is, we want to buy your newspaper. And then so like I kind of feel like I want to get to that part of the conversation before they see it, because then there's a danger of that shutting down the conversation. Like, oh, these fucking people just want to come in and but this is a gentrification move or some shit like that. I don't know.
I think it's interesting thinking about like who benefits from like the journalism. Like if we can revive a news desert, there's like the internal stuff that's like useful for that community, but then like what Matt was saying, it's like you kind of like same with the currency. It's like if the currency just kind of flows in the local community and never like goes outside of that, then it doesn't really like have that lift of the community as far as like value goes. So would it be that stories do make it out of these news deserts for a wider audience? And if so, like how are those discovered? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I assume it would, like, if it's visible in any way to like the statewide press in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. The coverage from this valley was pretty half-assed. But like I don't necessarily fault the media here because there is not a major media market in the state. I mean, the biggest market is Albuquerque, which just, there's not a lot of money in, the Albuquerque Journal isn't exactly swimming in cash, and I don't think the TV and radio stations are either. So I think there would be a hunger for news from these areas from those more regional newsrooms.
Would it be possible to I think we've talked about this before, but it almost like create a wire service based on their wallet address? Like if these citizen journalists and this small town paper are publishing decentralized and it's connected on Mirror and on Focher and it's connected to their Ethereum address, could you pull the stories connected to that Ethereum address into a collective container that then the local, state, and national levels could scan like an AP wire service, and it's all done through the Ethereum address? It's a thing. You just port the story in, right?
I mean, you could just like have everything from like a collection of addresses that basically gets like ported over to like an RSS feed or something, right?
Yeah. And then here's this massive story database. And that would be an incentive locally for them to get their story out nationally. And then national desks could then scan these local on the ground stories and see them that way.
I don't think these particular people that I'm emailing with, I don't think they're gonna, I mean, I could be wrong. Like my assumption would be like they don't particularly care about their stories being read in Denver, Santa Fe, New York, wherever.
Same with Quartzsite. Yeah, Quartzsite doesn't care either. They just want it all to stay local and just the local community to stay in on it, except for like that one story that the AP did pick up. So there are times where they might want to shoot it out.
I mean, every now, but it's probably just case by case, because there's like this particular community like 5 or 10 years back. Surprise, surprise! It's one of the poorest counties in the nation. And guess what lies under all that verdant rangeland and farmland? A shitload of natural gas. So like there was quite a fight against fracking in this area 5 to 10 years ago. Now for something like that, they definitely wanted visibility in DC and Santa Fe. So it just depends. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I think probably what makes the most sense is we could try setting up a Zoom call. I can respond something along the lines of what Keith suggested, and maybe set up a call. And we haven't really talked at all much about your friend in Arizona. I don't know if you think that's worth pursuing.
I don't know them at all. So
Okay.
I'm sure friends of friends know them. So this winter I'll be there rock hounding, hopefully in January. So that's usually when the season's like really hopping down there with the snowbirds. So I could just poke around and see and just kind of feel it out. Grab a coffee with that person and just see what the temperature is there. Because it'd be a great case study. And they have a weird dynamic. The movie Nomadland was filmed there. So if that gives you any indication of that town.
I've driven through there, that whole like area
it's
along
weird.
California border, like from Yuma on up. Like that's a strange scene.
It's wild. Yeah. Wow. I could just tell stories all night about that. Yeah. My family has an RV park there, so I'm pretty embedded in that community to a degree. They're in their 90s, so it's on its way out, but I know the town very well.
Right on. Well, maybe I might hit you up for to take a trip down to Mora with me sometime, Troy.
Yeah, I just drove over the pass yesterday and saw everything for the first time. It's pretty remarkable. And when you're driving through those communities like Holman, Cleveland, Mora, to see how close the burn line is to those villages. I mean, it's just like in their backyards. Some of them are so close. And I know some people too that lost everything. They had property up a dirt road up in the trees and all that burned. We should definitely, if you want to do something like that, we should do it sooner than later while things are still happening, I'd
Yeah.
be down for that.
Okay. Cool. Anything else, anyone? Like, crazy. It's a lot going on all of a sudden.
No, it's been good. This this meeting is big dopamine hit. It's just like going through the possibilities of all this stuff. And as long as we can actually move forward, and I think we are, just kind of pushing the rocks forward slowly. So
I mean, it seems to work. Just, you push on it as far as it goes without straining too much. And I mean, that was kind of the approach with the Diamond DAO thing. Like, okay, well, we'll just keep in touch and see if it goes anywhere, and like, continue to do that in multiple strains, I guess.
mhm. Yeah, well, thanks everyone for all the effort you're putting in. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, ditto. Right back at everyone.
Yeah, I'm loving it. This is the last.
Good.
I'm impressed with you all. I'm like an observer. I'm in the audience. I'm in the peanut gallery, and I can't even keep up with you guys. And every time I get an update, I'm like, wow, they're kicking ass. This is so cool. It's very inspiring. So I applaud you.
Thanks.
Need you, Troy. You're doing more than you know.
All right, all. Take care. Have a COVID-free rest of the week.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks.
Man. Bye, guys.
Bye.